Alright, welcome back to the course. I believe this should be the 8th video in the series, and if you remember in the last tutorial, in the last video, we actually stopped at this particular screen here where we were designing the login form for the students. So and I need to mention something to you. Now if you remember, we are using our database system where we are using the MySQLi procedural connection. I need to mention that I could have decided to use a object-oriented or PDO. Okay, now I know PDO is the most secure way of connecting to databases, but also we are going to try as much as possible to see how we can secure this particular application too by using HTML special chars and MySQLi underscore real escape string. And so the reason why I'm actually doing this procedure is because of total beginners. Okay, I want everybody to follow in this tutorial, even total beginners in PHP. Okay, so with that said, we're going to go ahead in this particular tutorial and code the login, the logic for the login for the login system on the student portal. So very quickly, I will just bring this down a bit, and of course I'm going to come here and open the PHP tag, okay, that should be above. What's going on? Okay, that is above this particular. I'm just gonna take all of this away. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to come here and I'll open a PHP tag. Okay, let's go down a bit. Now first of all, I'm going to open the section start variable function. Then I'm going to be creating some empty variables here that I'm going to use in holding error messages. So the first one, I'm going to call it message1. I'm going to make it an empty string. So I'm going to create another one called message2, and of course it's also going to be an empty string. Another one, message3, will also be an empty string. Another one, message4, will be an empty string as well. So we're going to stop on message4, or in message4 rather. If we need to create more, we'll come back to that later in the series. So now I also will require, I'm going to require once. I'm going to require once the config file. Alright, so I'm going to require once the config.php file. Okay, so one other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to creating a function.php file here that will hold all our functions. PHP file, so I'm going to call it functions.php, not just functions. Okay, since it's going to take PHP by default. Okay, then I will come back here. Now also I'm going to require the function file. They will know there's nothing there for now, but I'm just going to require it because I'll be adding some code inside it any moment. So that will be functions.php. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do, we're going to listen for, or should do check for form submit or submission. So we're going to write a code here that will check for when the form has been, when the submit button has been clicked by a user. Okay, now to do that, we're going to use the if statement, or the if statement. Now we're going to come here and write a function that is called isSet. And now what the PHP isSet function does is it checks when a particular variable or constant is available, or when a form, in this case the submit button on a form, is clicked. So we're going to start checking if the form is set with the isSet. So if you check, we are come back to the form, you find that our submit or our post method here is our method here is post. Okay, so I could have used get, but remember get is not very secured. So I was using the method of post, and our action here, I'm going to leave it. We are submitting back to the index.php page for action. So come back here, I'm going to write if each set, I'm going to use dollar underscore post is a PHP global variable. So and we're going to come back here to the submit button, and we're going to look for the name. Okay, type submit. Okay, we're going to give this input or the submit button or the submit input element a name of submit. Okay, so this is what we are using to check when the form has been clicked. So submit here. So once the submit button has been clicked, we want to do something. Okay, so the first thing we want to do here, we want to get the username of the user. So we're going to say username equals MySQLi. First of all, I'm going to use the real escape string, and the real escape string, first of all, we take the connection. Remember, we'll link our config file. Okay, so it's going to take the connection string to the database. That's the first thing it's going to take. Then I'm going to add this with the HTML special charge. This actually prevents in SSL attacks, okay, and this prevents in SQL injection. Okay, so now this will take dollar underscore post, the name of the form tag, okay, and username, we give it the name of username, okay, and remember the reg number, we give it the name of reg number. So I'm going to come here and I'll write username. Okay, now this HTML special charge also takes in more parameters. Now the next parameter it takes after this is the end quote. It takes the end quote, and the last one is the encoding. Okay, the encoding system, and here we're going to use UTF-8. We're going to make sure that this encoding system matches with the encoding system you're using for your HTML element. Okay, if you check here, our chart set here is UTF-8, so you must make sure that this matches with whatsoever you are entering here. Very important. Now the next one, I'm going to copy this actually to minimize typing. I'm going to copy this line, and of course I'm going to come down here and paste it again, but this time around I'm checking for the registration number status. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to write reg number. Okay, then of course we have to make that change here as well, and I'm going to add the reg number also here. Okay, so now the next thing we want to check here is want to validate the form. So let's just put here form validation. Okay, so the first validation I want to check is if the form is empty, because this username or the reg number is empty, because obviously we don't want a user to submit an empty form to us. Okay, so when the user tries to submit the form and it's empty, we want to raise an exception. So I'll start with the if element, the if tag again. Okay, or the if block, code block, and here I'm going to say if empty. Empty is a PHP inbuilt function that checks if a form element, or if an element or a variable is empty. So if empty username, I want to do something here. Now I'm going to pick the first variable I created up there, which is message1, and of course I'm going to equal it here. I'm going to open an div tag entering HTML mode here. So I'm going to open and close my div. Okay, so already it's closed there. Good. So here I'm going to add a bootstrap class of alert, and another one I'm going to write alert dash danger. Okay. Excuse me. Now the next thing I'm going to do there, I'm also going to add let me add the error message I want to show first there. So I'm going to alert that username. Let's tell the username is required. Okay, very important. Now the next thing here I'm going to add is style. I'm going to add a style. Okay, I'm going to bring this down a bit. Let me bring this down a bit. Okay, good. Now I'm going to add a style here, and first of all I'm going to give this a width of 351 pixels. Okay, then a height of 20 pixels. Okay, and a padding top of 0, and a margin top. I'll move this a bit. A margin top of 2 pixels. A margin top of 2 pixels. Okay, so I guess we have to bring this down a bit. Okay, let's see. Alright, so do this a bit from this section. Okay, just trying to make this look nicely. Okay, so we know this is the beginning and the end of the div. Okay, now that's for message 1. Now the next is for I'm going to check the reg number if it's empty or not. So with that, I'm going to add an if block here. So if, and of course this also takes a code block. So if empty reg number. If empty reg number, I want to also do something here. Oh guys, so sorry about. Alright guys, I'm really so sorry there. I had don't know, I'm having an issue with my PHP storm license evaluation there. So now before we actually check if the reg number is empty, I want to first of all check if the username that the user is giving to us actually exists. So we're going to be writing a function to check that, get this away, and that function will be username check. Okay, so I'm going to write that function in a moment. So to be username check, let's call it username check. Okay, so we'll return back to this in a moment. Let's go to the functions of PHP now. So the name of the function, like I said, is going to be called username check, and I'm going to come here. Let's just write comment this section check if username exists for a user. Okay, alright, so I'm going to write a function, and the name of the function, like we said, is username check. And this is going to take about 2 parameters. It's going to take the connection to the database, and it's also going to take the username variable from the form the user is submitting to us. So first of all, we are going to write the query. Okay, so I'm going to comment here query or SQL query. Now the SQL here will be select our username. From, remember the name of our database is student. Okay, is student. So select username from student, where username is equals to the username that the user will be giving us from the form, and that will be stored in a variable called username. Remember. Okay, now before I proceed, I want to fix something here. As you can see, I'm having some issues here, and if I hover, I get an error message that says unable to resolve column. Now it doesn't mean that this column is not correct in the database, because I haven't set what we call a database structure for this database source for PHP Storm, okay, to rightly identify with my database. So to do that, what I have to do is to click on database here, then I'm going to click on this plus icon here, and I'm going to go to database source, Then I'll select my database driver I'm using here. I'm using my SQL, my SQL, which is this one here. I'm going to click on my SQL. Then the next thing I'm going to do, okay, this obviously pops up after that selection. Then I'm going to enter my database information here. Of course, I'm having my user as root. My host is localhost. Okay, so I'm going to enter my database password, which with 6 letters, which we've seen from the config.php file. And the database we want to connect to, remember, if I open back the config file, let's just really close here and come back to the config file. Database name is result checking. Okay, so let's come back here. Let's complete this database source, MySQL, and let's enter this again, root, 6 letters, that's the password, and of course database is results checking. Okay guys, so we're going to click on text connection now. Okay, test connection, and of course this is successful. As you can see, we have this checked. So once this is done, all you need to do is to click on OK. So you click on OK and give this some time. I'm going to click here to hide this. Okay, then I'm going to close this console here and give this some time. Everything should come back to normal. As you can see, we are back to normal. Okay, so alright, now I'm going to quickly complete this particular query, then we'll continue in the next video because this video is getting a little bit long. Now I'm going to write the second query here. So the query, I'm going to create a variable called query, and this will be my SQLi underscore query. Then I'll put SQL there. Now I can decide to just write all the query, write this query inside this particular place, but I prefer having a variable to hold all my query, why I just introduce it here. Okay, so alright, that is that. And remember, this takes 2 parameters actually. This takes the connection again, and of course the SQL itself. Okay, now we're going to check next, check if a user is retrieved or if a result is retrieved before we do the next thing. So, and to do that, we are going to write the if statement again. Okay, now we're going to use the MySQLi num rows function. So MySQLi underscore num rows. So this check if there was a row was retrieved for this particular query above. So if MySQL underscore num rows, and we're going to pass the variable which is query. So we're going to say is greater than 0. Okay, you can also say if it's equal to 1, it's the same thing there. So if it's greater than 0, we want to do something. X here, I'm going to add an S block here. So S, I'm going to say return false. Okay, so why coming back here, once that happens, I'm going to create a result variable. Okay, and I'm going to equal it to my SQLi underscore fetch array query. Okay, I want to fetch the result. I want to fetch the query from the database. Okay, so alright, in fact guys, I'm going to stop this video here. Okay, then we'll continue in the next video. Right.